what we are going to talk about is it's not actually necessarily value. I was just listening to the previous conversation. This is about the business model. And part of the model is the business value proposition, right? So that's what we're going to be talking about. So here's the agenda. And I'm sure when you look at this, you think this guy just went and picked up all the cliche words: digital transformation, product as a service, business model, design thinking, and all this in one. But actually, my goal is to kind of make it real, because even when I look at a lot of the presentations, there are a lot of charts and models, as what it is, and a lot of diagrams. But when it comes to building something, I believe that we don't have a whole lot of ways of doing it. So my goal today is just to give the context is, why do we need a business model? And then once we establish that, how do we do it, right? Do we have to hire a consultant for 3 months and they kind of tell you what you already knew and just walk away and then you end up executing it? So is there a better way to do it? And I'm a big fan of design thinking. I've been using it almost every chance possible. I'm almost afraid I'm just walking with a hammer looking for the nail. I kind of fell in love with it, but I do think that there is a way that we can leverage design thinking for developing business model and even beyond. So that's my goal for this session. So the first thing is the context. Okay, why do we need a business model, right? A lot of the people are established in the business, a lot of corporations, but what we are seeing is something very strange, right? It's a bank that doesn't own any branch, right? There are just online banks, and who would have thought that there's no license, there's no vehicle, there's no driver thing, but you have a transportation system, and you don't own any of the assets, and you have a hotel system, right? So I just saw today that one of the biggest, the 30 under 30 from Asia, is a person who just built a virtual system for the students and the college students to get started and provide leads. And it's about 800,000 members in that system. And what this is doing, and even this is a statement from the bank that they are scared. I mean, you look at it, Bitcoin, and everybody's into payment. Amazon, Google, Facebook, everybody's accepting payments. And these people, startups who have no other expense, are just coming up with ideas that could potentially disrupt the way the traditional banking does. I always fell in love with blockchain for one reason, because when I look at a lot of these what I call aggregators getting a commission out of a service that they provide, blockchain and the W3 could be a game changer where no one owns anything. It's completely decentralized. And that could change even the Ubers, the Airbnbs. If such a system comes, just like similar to Bitcoin, if there was a decentralized network and people are paid for services, not a percentage-based thing for look at the impact on the restaurant industries with people who are $10 worth of food, $20 goes to a service provider, right? So these things are going to change. And what this means is the people in the industry need to kind of rethink the way they do. So the context here is that there is a real urgency for people to look at their business model, to rethink how they will do it. Otherwise, they won't be in business. And also, what has become is that it has become very niche, right? So if I'm a retired environmentalist, and what are the activities I do, and then I'm slicing it through, okay, what are the financial services that I need? What are the retail? What's the transportation and delivery, right? So the digital aspect would be very targeted at a niche market, and then kind of bringing all the services together. Right? That's what is going to happen. So what does that mean? That means
Raj,
that, Yes.
Sorry to interrupt you, but on the screen that you're sharing is towards the bottom is a white tab. And if you hit
Yeah.
the hide button,
I'm sorry.
that's okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so
I
much.
should have done that. Yes. Yeah. Okay. Thanks for, yeah, it might have been blocking. Thank you. Yeah. So, yeah, the thing we need to do is identify the specific segments. The need for business model becomes even critical because now you need to identify the precise segment, what value proposition and what partnership you need, what activities that you need. So you need to identify that. So this digital disruption and the very segmented niche market to which we need to prepare, all of these are just, again, our main theme is why do we need a business model, right? That's the thing that I'm trying to establish here. So the way that people are looking at is that, okay, your, traditionally what has worked, your brick and mortar, or even you are an online, and then you suddenly see people coming up with things that you were not thought possible. They were not what you were doing, but they are doing something more, and it worked. And then the potential, all kinds of things that you could eventually do. So, in order to kind of look at in the from building the business model would be the intersection of all the Venn diagram. So, to get to accelerate the business value of what you already know, and look around what's working, and also look at what's possible, and look at the value. I kind of like this statement. It's because technology is not the answer, right? It's not about, hey, now I was just in another presentation this early this morning. It's all about the rage is all about low code. Oh, now we can easily build applications. Now everybody's low code. The people Figma, they're doing frame a wireframe, they are low code. People who write API, they are low code. Now everybody's about writing a better application, easier application. uh, so our everybody's into data or dashboards and Power BI, Tableau. So yes, I mean, I'm not undermining that. Yes, those are all things that are part of the equation. But I think what it's about is how do you kind of fundamentally change or identify products and services that are in this modern era with these new technologies, these new possibilities, right? That's what is about digital transformation, and that's what is about why we need to look at the business model. And I've been at Microsoft. One of the biggest change that I've been asked to do recently is that every established company, they want to become a software company. And it's not that just suddenly they woke up and say they want to be a software. They realize they have so much assets, and they go and do this one off, and they have not really mastered of putting it as a service. Whereas people like AWS, Microsoft, we are actually from the cloud. It's always everything as a service. You can easily go and consume it, frictionless consumption. But in most of the traditional product sales, everything is one off. It's a okay, buy this license for $250,000, buy 30 servers, and the entire license for the year, or go with it, right? And customers are no longer willing to do that. And so what they're coming to us and asking us, Microsoft, you've been doing this, help us to get there. We just want it to be, yes, maybe like if you look at this right hand slide, where is the most value? Imagine, yeah, when I say, let's say Office 365, you pay $10 per user. Yeah, that's where somewhere in the middle. And or if you say you need to install Exchange on your premise, that's the probably partly digital services. But when you look at outcome based, it's not based on a subscription. It's not based on servers, but it's based on, okay, I need all my emails and all my workflow taken care of, and I'm going to pay you X dollars, right, on a monthly basis. And it could include all the services to make my employee productive. That is the kind of things that people are moving to, right? From a one-time turnkey solutions to outcome-based contracts. We're not there on the outcome-based, but like even if you look at Microsoft, when they are pricing their dynamics and other things, they're trying to get away from, okay, $5 for this, $10 for this. Okay, it's for your supply chain. Here is or get one monthly thing. We'll handle all your email, your office, your teams, your collaboration, all that is what we call it will enable your productivity instead of nickeling and diming, okay, $5 per month for this, etc. So that's where people want to get there. And again, why am I saying this? Because again, the first step for me is building a business model. That's why the business model becomes uh, important. So even when I look at this, right, there are ways when you do digital transformation. A lot of people are looking at operational processes, which is there's nothing wrong with it. Things like robotic process automation, or if you're in manufacturing, predictive maintenance, asset management, business process optimization, orchestration. Yes, that's another area. And then definitely data has become a big part, which is to leverage AI and ML to do predict customer churn, or to leverage customer data to offer the relevant products. Yes, but where the real thing, I believe, when we talk about total transformation, is reimagining your business model. And once again, that's the part that I want to focus on and show you what I mean by that. I think there's so many definitions: enterprise architecture, business architecture. But I'm going to introduce something which is already there. But I kind of like this for what we want to do. So when we do the business model or business value model, this is the evolution from a Porter's things, the core competency and the support resources, to what we'll be talking about, what I call the business model canvas. And that's the one that I've been using. And I've done about 3 or 4 workshops end to end. One workshop was about 3 days in person with my customers, and another one was virtual, about 4 or 5 2-hour sessions to build what you see on the right. And this is the one that I'm going to be talking about. Again, I just want to bring back the context. So we are doing digital transformation, but as part of the digital transformation, in order to kind of look at new products and deliver new products and services, we want to reimagine our business model. Look at who the customers are, what's our value proposition, who are our partners, what's our key activity, and what are the revenue and cost streams, and take a fresh look at it and build this business model to drive what we are going to build. Right. So recently I did one business model. One of the reasons they asked me to do that was they are acquiring companies left and right. Right. So they used to build a software which was kind of a one-off, but now they want to rethink. Okay, if I'm going to be acquiring business every year, I need to create some core, extensible, domain-based systems. So let's kind of first, in order to justify that, let's build a business model. So those are all some of the drivers that we are doing, right? So this is the business model canvas that I've helped a few customers to build. Now, the activities that you see on the left are the components of it. Necessarily, not all of them need to be done, nor do we have to do it in great detail, but some of them are definitely more important, particularly your customer segments, your value propositions. So, okay, if we have to do this, what is the best way to do this, right? Is it another diagram, like so many diagrams that are out there, or am I going to call a big consultant to fill this by conducting interviews and just leaving me with the fragmented opinions of senior leaders and others? Is there a better way to do this? So that's what has prompted me to kind of do this presentation, and I'm going to share some tools that I use to build with some samples. Unfortunately, I cannot share the real content, but I'll share some samples of the activities that we did to come up with this business model. So as you can see, they're numbered because there is a certain order in which you start, right? You start off with your customer, and then you identify value proposition. Why? Because once you know your customer, you know what is your differentiated value proposition is for your targeted customers, right? And then it goes into, okay, how do you sell? What are your channels that you use to sell your customer? How do you support your customer? And what are your revenue streams? What are the core activities in your organization? And it goes on until you end up with what are the cost elements and cost structure, right? So this is the one that we want to build. Now, this is something that I built because And I just, I kind of blame consultants to say that they come and give you a business model. So what now, right? So what I'm doing, I've been fortunate enough to work from end to end. So, okay, but I'm not going to talk about it, but I just wanted to give you, it's not just about business model, but we are going to go all the way. So once I create a business model, then because now you know who your customers are, what your value proposition is, what are the elements of your business that you want to build. Now you establish the success criteria and build some objectives and key results. And I put it here critical partnership. It's because typically Microsoft works with our customers and we tell them, okay, we help you build the model. You know what? We're going to help you realize that model in terms of technology deployment. In which case, let's establish the OKR. What's your expectation from us? Okay, they say that I want reduced cost. I want to be a variable expenses. I want to be able to use leverage AI to increase, so they'll have measurable key results. And of course, Microsoft is interested in certain things in which we say, you know what, we want you to use Microsoft Azure. We want you to use our data platform. And so it's the kind of a mutual expectations that we can monitor through the journey. So after we help them build the model, we don't jump into the technology. We just establish the criteria. We don't talk about technology until much later. And once we do this, now that I know what my value proposition is, what my business model is, what activities I need to do, how do I differentiate that? Then I do an ideation session. Okay, what kind of solutions will enable me to do that? Again, I don't talk technology. I don't talk Power BI. I don't talk about bots or anything like that. But I just say, what kind of solutions? Okay, I need the ability to onboard a customer very quickly because it takes 3 months now. We lose opportunity. There are people who can come and set this up. Okay, that's a prioritized capability for which you need a solution, a composable solution that would are based on services that you can do, right? And so we kind of identify what solutions you need in order to support your business value model. And the next step would be, okay, now that I know these are the capabilities I need, what's the gap? Where are you now? And where should you be? And in order to where should you be, then what are the solutions that you need? And that's where we talk about technology. Okay, we need the solution, and this is the technology that helps you. And I do another thing, which I find it very fascinating, particularly for the thing is that then I build a solution vision demonstrator, which is a potential way how it looks without building it. It's kind of a PowerPoint storyboarding type of thing. It shows you the art of the possible, right? And then we kind of, in order to decide what alternatives we pick, we do a business value analysis with ROI, and then do a MVP, iterate through that, and then finally develop. And the last piece I call digital enablement office is to continually monitor that the OKRs are being met, the business value is being realized, so that we continue the loop. So this is the model that I do. Now, we talked about business model. Now I want to talk about design thinking. And like I said, I've been fascinated and I've been leveraging it as much as I can when it makes sense. Because design is a solution to a problem, but there is an art part of it. How do you identify the problem? How do you prioritize them? How do you solicit input from people and do this? And that's where the design thinking process comes. So again, a quick definition of design thinking. Primarily, it's human-centered. It means that people are making decisions. And then it's more than that. It means it's a collaborative process. It's not the boss told. If a consultant comes and talks to the CEO or CIO, they have certain things in mind and they say, recommend this. No, it's much more the stakeholders come together, if it's virtual, I've done both now. And now after COVID, I was so lucky to do in-person workshops where we use sticky notes and we build this. And sometimes people think it's about just dumping sticky notes, but even though it's a creative process, it's very well structured. Yeah, I kind of don't believe in the fact there's nothing like a bad idea. There are bad ideas. We know that. So how do we control that? So there is a structure to this creative process where we let people, irrespective of their title, be able to express, but targeted towards a certain outcome that we want to do this. And the design thinking also very heavily relies on prototype. Don't build the big thing first. Do a prototype, iterate, and do this. So that's the process. And there's another big thing about design thinking is the a double diamond model. So you start out by saying, what is possible? I want to do this. I want to do everything, right? Don't stop them from, in a constrained, don't drive them towards certain things. And then, okay, if all these things you want to do, which one we should be focusing? And when we kind of converge from those divergent ideas, we use several criteria. Is it practical? Is it important? Is there a value in it? What is the risk associated with this? And then we narrow down from all the potential ideas. And then we do a reverse process. Okay, now that I've identified 5 or 6 things, what are the solutions in order to do this? Then we diverge, saying, hey, I can do all microservices based architecture, or I can do package solutions. I can use advanced technologies, AI, all kinds of things. And then we kind of converge to, okay, let's kind of pick something that's more reasonable and do a prototype, right? So this double diamond approach is what I like about, where you're open and creative, but still we end up with a solution that you can iterate and go through, right? Okay, now that I want to kind of show you how I do this. So I use Cluxon, and again, the tool is not important, but I like it because of the way it is built. And I took this from one of the workshops that I did. So the way I do it, I structure these activities. So remember, I had the business, I'll skip the icebreaker, which is I help people to use this tool. But then I take the thing, and remember, I had 9 activities. Then I'll start with this activity. And here, what I do is I time the people and I give them 5 or 10 minutes, and then I tell them what we are trying to do here. This is in the business model canvas, if you recall, this is to identify a customer segment, right? So, hey, this is what we need to do. And then I have a timer and I'll give them 10 minutes. And then what they do is they'll go and say, okay, my customer segment is, boutique shops. I'm just randomly putting it. And then there are a few things I use, and there are color codes, right? It says it's a customer that because of the way I'm doing it in my business model, I must win these customers. So I use this color. But if I think it's someone that I want to target on the near future, then I'll change the color. And then I also use these categories. I dynamically change, and I ask them, hey, how do you want it? What are the metadata you want to know about your customer? So I could go here. These customers we already have, but this is a customer that I want to look towards the future. And this customer is if we have not developed, so I might use this. And then now they put it in. Now there'll be 6 to 7 people, most of the business stakeholders who are in the business, who are in the selling, who are responsible for developing and selling and producing. And imagine 6, 7 of them, you won't believe when I give them 5 minutes, this board is filled. So what I do about 5, 10 minutes, that I ask them to kind of look back and discuss another 5 minutes and cluster them. Because a lot of the ideas, people are surprised. Everybody's thinking about a lot of these things. And then I kind of help them to kind of group them and cluster them. And then I also ask them to vote on it, to say, okay, which one should be our top? So when I build my business model, it is consensus. Everybody has discussed about it. Everybody knows. And then when I'm building my solutions, I'm going to use this to say, what I'm building, is it going to help me target this customer? So it's really a very good basis on which I'm going to be building a solution, right? So I do this for every activity, and I'm not going to go through that because of the time. But if you look at it, I have for customer segment, for value proposition, for distribution channel, customer relations. So the entire business canvas will be done, and then I also do this for people to, after the activities, so hey, what worked, what did not work, and what are things that can be improved, and then I continue these sessions. So the net result is you get a business value model, business canvas model, however you want to call it. The reason I use the value aspect is that the primary focus is on who are your customers, what's your value proposition, and how do you build the value proposition, right? So if we go back to our presentation, this is one of the thing. The reason I just put this thing here is because there's some sensitive information. This is from a real customer. This is what happened. I gave them 5 minutes. They came up with all of this, and they grouped them based on the similarity. Okay, this is all public, and this is retail grocery. So they just kind of um, built this on their own, right? So end of my 3 days, what typically people would have spent hundreds of dollars. I'm not saying this is perfect or you've got the final thing. I've come up with a consensus model built by the stakeholders in terms of which customer segments they want to tackle, what's your differentiated value proposition, what new areas they want to do, who are their key partners. So this entire business value model canvas that which I had is built. I fill this with all the things that I found. I summarize them and I give them this as the starting point. And once they have that, then I move on to. I'm just going to quickly walk you through. We have another 15 minutes. So if you look at this, so I first do the business value model, then I do the OKRs. So this is what it looks like. Hey, what's the company objective? What's the team objective? What are the measurable results? So that when I implement my solution, I need to say that, okay, because of this, this is the key result. Here's the baseline. This is where I'll be moving as a result of this initiative. Some kind, and I do when necessary. I do a business value analysis as well, but I do it slightly differently. I was listening to the previous conversation, so I kind of do what are the value drivers and let's say reduce cost. So in order to reduce cost, what are the things that I can do? For example, I can increase the usage of my asset. Okay, so what's the KPI? Original equipment effectiveness. And what solution will it do? Potentially a IoT sensor-based system that collects the state of the equipment to warn me so that I can do predictive maintenance, things like that. So I kind of build that whole. First, identify KPI, then identify the solution, and then measure the improvement. Right. That's what I do in the objectives key results. And once we have that, then okay, for this model to work, what capabilities do I need? That's what here again, I don't talk about technology. These are the capabilities that I need. And I kind of, there are multiple horizontal and vertical dimensions. I take the same thing and put it in another dimension, saying, what is the risk and what is the complexity, right? And then the best candidate for me is the one which is strategically important, which is transformational, low risk, and high return, right? So I use multiple dimensions to kind of pick and prioritize what solutions should I be implementing. And once that is done, I look at where we are and where we need to go. Again, I use design thinking for that to say, okay, what if this is here, and where do you want to be? And I put all the existing where you are, and I ask them to ideate on where do you want to be in that. And again, I leverage design thinking. So this is where I come up with what you have, what you need. This is for a data. And then once that is done, once I know this is where I want to be, I again use design thinking to ideate on solution alternatives and make people come to a consensus and prioritize them. And I mentioned this is one of the ways, that I use to. There are many prioritization criteria. This is one way. Okay, here are the alternatives. My criteria one has this much weightage, and this is the score. And then okay, based on this, alternative one is the one that is the most viable things. So I take them through that. Then I build. Once we know, okay, this is the solution we want to do, I build a conceptual demonstrator to show. So if you look at this, this is one of those really cool thing. We don't have anything in built, but it kind of shows the art of the possible. The personalities, the journey maps, and how do they interact with the system? What are the benefits? So when you go and present, what are you building? I'm telling you, you got to wait 6 months to see that. But I say this is what we are thinking of. We haven't built it, but this is how it's going to look like. so that people get an idea. And then we do some detailed business value analysis that in terms of ROI. From here, if you spend this on the solution, here's the return on investment. And then we kind of build a minimum viable product. So one of the fundamental concept of design thinking is to iterate, right? Don't build it, first iterate and go back and see if there's a better alternative, or will this thing work? Is it in alignment with your business model? And then continually do this before you, your final production is done. Then you use CI/CD for continuous development and integration, and you use digital enablement office, right? So what I mean by digital enablement office is, okay, here is the business transformation you want to do. Here's the IT transformation. It is more than program management in the sense you're just looking to see, are we on track? Are these guys, engineering guys, get excited and go build something else that doesn't align with what the business transformation is? And all the OKRs that we built, are we meeting those OKRs? If not, should we be changing any of those? So the digital enablement office, the responsibility is to make sure what you said you would do and the promises you made on your OKRs are being met. And if you're not deviating from our original goal, or if we have to deviate because we're not meeting that, we are doing it with an awareness that, hey, it didn't work out the way we said, but our goal is this. Let's change what we are doing. So that's the part of the digital enablement office that we work on. So in summary, what I wanted to convey in this thing is that the business value model is one of the core components of digital transformation. Why? Because you need to take another look at who are your customers? Who else do you want to sell to? Are they new customers? And what's your differentiated value proposition? If everybody is an online store holder, how are you going to differentiate it? Not everybody can be an Amazon. So what's the value and how do you want to differentiate your value proposition? Who are your key partners? That's the first step, even before building a solution, right? And then a lot of times I see this business model canvas and they say you need to hire a consultant, $100,000, 3 months or whatever. But I believe design thinking and with a good facilitator must be done through a collective input of the people. To me, design thinking really enables us to do that, right? And then another thing is I don't want to be the bigger consultant who come and say, hey, here's your strategy, here's your model. It's up to you how to execute it. So that's why I kind of added to, okay, if this is the model, how do I get there? Through a process of looking at solution alternatives, prioritization, prototyping, and MVP, and finally deploying it. So the theme of business model, using design thinking, and also realizing value is something that I've been very actively involved with a lot of my strategic customers. And I cannot tell you how much it has improved, at least my relationship with the customer. They don't look at me anymore as a guy who's trying to sell the cloud, right? I never talk about a product until I understand the business model, until I understand what is the accomplishing it. And, end of the day, when we do this, the kind of trust is what makes them want to say, yes, if these people understand my business and what they are doing is aligning with my business outcome and value, then they don't mind spending the money that it takes to build that. We have a much higher stake in the outcome of our customers than a vendor who sells Office, a vendor who sells, Power BI. So that has been my experience, and I continue to see a lot of traction. So with that, I will open and
that was a great presentation. Thank you, Raj. I really appreciate that. I have a couple of questions. So one question is about, your camera is working. Sorry.
It is. So I just I didn't want distraction during my presentation, so I just.
Oh, okay, good. So one of the things I'm wondering about when you actually do the business model canvas, do you ever find that you're sort of in the process and you go, we don't know that much about this. We need to go to market, or we need to do some sort of a test, or we need to go. There's somebody not in our group, or do you find that you can usually rough it through with your with some group that you're getting?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the people in the sales and in the marketing have some hypothesis, right? So we are not telling them, I need to know exactly, did you do a market analysis? Did you do this? Hey, at least like for example, in the previous customer that I had, they said, you know what, we are acquiring. I want to get into healthcare industry. I didn't ask them, did you do a market analysis? I said, okay, that's one of the goals. So when we do some of these things, in the meantime, if that's where they want to do, they're definitely going to do some research, and we would start up with some assumption, then we can iterate them. But I never make it a requirement. First, come and prove to me that's the market that you can go. Yeah.
That's fair. And as you do this, the other question that I have, patterns. Have you noticed that there's certain patterns, for certain value propositions, customer segments that seem to be recurring, that we might at some point actually harvest sort of business model canvas patterns?
Yeah. So one of the things that I don't know if I could call them as a pattern is like in a lot of the things, one of the patterns that I see is a lot of times these technology people are trying to drive the business model, and I always caution them. What happens is that even in the previous one, they got me involved because I'm in the technology as well. They
Yeah.
wanted to build a certain type of solution. They've already made up their mind. They wanted it to be microservices, this and that.
Yeah.
And they were like trying to justify a business model. And I tried to tell them that seems to, a lot of times people have certain things they want to do, and then they look to justify, and they build a model to map. And I try to caution them, look, yeah, we may end up there, but I don't think that should be the driver. So even though I think it's not a pattern over the business model, but I see a pattern in people. When do they come to us? It's typically some IT person wants to build these big solutions, and they're looking for justification. But within the business model canvas itself, I'm just trying to think if there's any common pattern across industry.
Like for instance, I mean, as you're building a minimum viable product, I'm sort of thinking, maybe we go out and it turns out that here's an affiliate pattern, maybe that we're going to, just try to market it this way, or maybe a subscription pattern, because you almost alluded to this at the beginning of your talk, right? And I was just wondering if you saw anything more in there, any patterns emerging.
Yes. Okay. From the solution, I'm seeing a lot of patterns, right? One of the things that definitely the pattern of loosely coupled microservices is definitely an emerging pattern, and I'm so glad. A lot of people are looking at domain-driven design. A lot of people are looking at microservices, not because it's cool. It's because the way that, like the previous case I mentioned about the expansion market, they realized there is a core, and all those services are common, right? Instead of building for healthcare a solution, a healthcare. Yeah. What if that pattern is emerging? Like, what if I build the core services and decoupled, so that instead of being one on, but extend those services. And another big pattern I'm seeing is common data model. I think that seems to be a big focus on common data model. So, like for example, insurance industry, right? You have the entities and attributes, right? So how do I create a common data model? But I may have 10 or 2 different insurance things, but I bring them all into a single model, so that all my services are built on top of the common data model, rather than, okay, I get this data. So that is another pattern that I'm seeing.
Well, that's actually interesting. So one of the things I'm hearing there is, across different business models, there might be an opportunity to standardize some of the terminology.
Yes.
And even share that, like in an organization for different product areas, even once it's standard, right?
Yeah. And then the mapping of, okay, I'll just give you an example. You're using Salesforce for customer service, and you're doing SAP. Both of them have customers, right? So what if I created a customer common data model, and I don't care that it's called Kunar in SAP and something else in Salesforce, but as an end user who's consuming some of these add-on application, there is a common model, even though some attributes of customer came from Salesforce, some attribute of customer came from SAP, but I have a single common data model, and any system that I build will leverage that rather than trying to go connect to customer, transform that, but transform the data as a central repository. Yeah.
You use the visual tool in your presentation. Is that available to the public?
No, it is not. So there are so many. So it's not Microsoft tool, by the way. It is
Okay.
it's called Klaxoon, and there is another product called Mural and Miro. There are so many design thinking tools. It's unbelievable. Hundreds of companies are using them. It's
Okay.
but they're all, you have to license them. Yeah, you don't have
Okay.
to license for the end user, but for me to build that whole session with all the different segments and the sticky notes, and that you need a license to do.
Well, I love there was that visual tool that you had, which looked very much like way back in Microsoft. They had this thing called the Book of Dreams, right, where they would put together like and it had that flavor. And I thought, man, that'd be awesome to have a tool like that available for people to use, right?
Yeah, yeah. It is a up and coming thing. So everybody is there are some leaders in the design thinking where there are 4 or 5 great products. I like this particular tool, but I'm not promoting or advocating. Whatever you're comfortable with. End of the thing, what I like about is that the collaborative process by which people are able to go in and then in this particular tool, I also like, if you noticed, I added some metadata. I use its color codes, and I said, hey, we use a category, and then what I can do is I can download it as a spreadsheet. Then I send them a report saying, and then I do voting to say, here are the top 5 customer segments you want to focus on. So it gives me a lot more to provide as an output as well.
Daryl, I'm hoping you have some questions.
Yeah, I just wanted to jump in here. Sorry to barge in, attack the host. But Raj, wonderful presentation. Thank you. And it did cause me to reflect back on, I think, 2012, when I was having a conversation. I was working for a consultancy in Sydney, and I was having conversations with them about this thing called a business model canvas that they might be able to use with their clients, and they were fascinated. We're poring over an A3 version of the BMC, and they were getting their heads around how you might use it. And of course, it's a wonderfully simple tool to sort of capture a lot of information. I guess there's a couple of questions, if you don't mind me throwing some at you, Raj. But one is that if we look at what I've just said, that was 10 years ago. And for all of its simplicity and usefulness, I still don't see the business model canvas being used widely and discussed in management forums. So what do you think the barrier is to adoption of this?
Yeah, I mean the problem is filling that canvas. It's not an easy task. You won't believe, I'm also a judge at the Microsoft. We have something called Imagine Cup, right, where the students compete with their ideas, hundreds of, and it's amazing. And I'm so fortunate to be a judge. I feel, my belief in the youth is, is reinforced. I just was so amazed. About 30 to 40% of their Imagine presentation had a business model canvas. So a lot of the new entrepreneurs are using business model canvas to, like, the traditional business plan, cash flow. I need X dollars. They're getting away with this because that's a bogus thing. People are throwing numbers, but this is more real. And I actually gave higher marks to those people, not because I like business model. It was so clear. They knew who their customers are. They knew what their differentiated value proposition was. They knew what their revenue stream. It's all in one page. Okay. And so it's being used by the younger people, that's for sure. A lot of the new entrepreneurs, startups are using it, at least. The corporations, maybe not as much. And the couple of roadblocks is that you think that means a McKinsey or a high-paid consultant or somebody needs to come and do this. And how do you fill all that? And that's why one of the reasons I did this presentation is, you may not get the perfect one, you're perfectly capable of doing it internally with some facilitation through participation of your own team to build this. So to me, the challenge people are not doing it, it looks at it, oh, all this, how am I going to do it? So that's one of the reasons. And even the thinking about having a business model is still not coming to the corporate mindset. I know my business, I know my customers, I know no, yes, you know, but things have changed. Time for you to take another look, time to look at your customers beyond who you're serving, right? So people need to kind of feel the need and the pain for that, which will come. And then the blocker is how long it's going to take. And if they don't dump this model, what am I going to do with it? What's the real value? Those are some of the blockers, I think.
Yeah, that's some really good points. And I'll just pick up on your point about judging at awards and such. And I do the same here in Australia, and it's a wonderful way of giving back to the industry. But it's like a great boost in terms of your enthusiasm towards what's happening. There's so many people trying to solve problems out there, and I was reminded of a couple of years ago. We had some youngsters, they were around about 12, 13, that were involved in an awards program, and they were standing up a new technology platform. And they came in and they did this polished presentation to myself and others, and it included things like business partnerships, channels, and revenue streams. And I was just blown away that 12 and 13-year-olds were being sort of coached through this process, and obviously using tools like the BMC.
Yeah, and they use sticky notes and things, and so for them, they don't have this burden of a corporation, right? And then, like, I was just like you said, it makes it so, like, I saw a proposal where they're using artificial eye to guide a blind person, so that as they walk, this image recognition tells you there is a step, and it's constantly feeding them and guiding them. And then they had a nice business model for this, where they target customers. I mean, these are, to be part of that re-energizes you to see our young people coming up with these things. Yes,
it certainly does. And I actually saw a video on that solution. It was very impressive.
Yeah.
So a couple more questions, if you don't mind. Thinking about the use of the business model canvas in complex business environments, and I'm thinking specifically of a scenario that I had a few years ago where it was a complex organization. It had multiple companies across the enterprise. It actually even had sort of intentional competition within the market across the brands that operated in the enterprise. And so then you had sort of competing interests in the room while you were trying to come up with an overall picture of how this works. What's your experience in terms of handling highly complex organizations?
Yeah, I'm not sure if I've come across the one that you're saying is even more complex, where there's a competing product even within the corporation. But I'm working with a big conglomerate now. It's a big aerospace company. They bought a lot of companies. So one thing, I start off with a high level, what we call business outcomes for the company, and what's their strategy. And then I don't do a model canvas for the entire organization. I will go to a certain division, or even within the division, if there's a business unit which has got a clear product that's targeted at certain segment of, that's my best candidate for business model canvas. But the initial point of, okay, where is the company going? I use it as an input in that thing, because they can say, overall, we want to, like they would say, this company said, there's too much redundancy, we want to consolidate and reduce cost, right? Because we bought these 5 companies, all of them have IT, all of them have similar things we are not leveraging. Then that should be one of the drivers when we are looking at solutions and things. Then I try to bring that in, but I don't do a business model canvas for a corporation of multiple entities. It doesn't make sense. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. It's a great opportunity to watch people argue, though. So it's I was just wondering if also, and sorry if you had it in the presentation and I missed it, but the use of the value proposition canvas as an adjunct to the BMC.
Yeah, I have used it. I did not show it in this one. So when people are struggling with identifying what is their differentiated value, what are the customers' pain points, how can you delight them, I also use the business value proposition canvas. Okay, what delights them and where you are, and that's another thing I do, and then use that in conjunction with the differentiated value proposition. But typically, I start with the customer segments, and if they need, then I'll insert the value proposition canvas again to do the value proposition, and then add the value. If they think, no, I don't need that, I know exactly, then I just use the segment and add the value proposition. Yes.
I don't know about you, Raj, but when somebody tells me they know exactly what their customer wants, I usually think that's an opportunity for them to improve their relationship with their customer, because they probably don't know what their customer wants. Just thinking about the practice of design thinking. So I've been a long-time supporter of design thinking, human-centered design, getting those constant customer feedback loops going, and also as an adjunct, sort of trying to encourage a systems thinking type approach as well, so that they understand the sort of outside-in view of their organisation, and also the forces that are at play. But what I'm finding is that there's not a wealth of experienced design thinking people out there. What's your experience, particularly in your part of the world? Are you seeing that growing? Are more people learning and using it?
Yes, actually, I am relatively new, but once I found out the value of it, I fell in love with it, and I'm now, I must have done about 50, 60 workshops, because I try to use it in every. I mean, again, I don't want to overuse it. If it doesn't make sense for obvious things, I will not use it. Again, I don't want the tool to dictate, but the moment people see this, I think most of the people are trying to use it. You will see from 3M to Infosys, everybody is using design thinking these days. It seems to be a really, and I'm glad about it. It's not like once you start doing it, as a matter of fact, I was recently interviewed by the Clutch Zone. One of the things, it made me better. It made me listen better. It made me facilitate better because of the canvas and the way that we kind of solicit input and the collaboration and the time. And again, what I do a lot of preparation. And I also tell them, this is not a magic where in 10 minutes you put sticky notes and you come up with to solve world's hunger. No, you come prepared with what you want to say, and I'm going to give you a canvas, and I'm going to make it a collaborative, right? And I think it's going to grow. You'll see people using it in most of the scenarios where it makes sense.
Yeah.
Do you find, I just want, when you're doing this, that you sometimes get a lot of competing models, like in the room, and then you would actually select them? Like, do you ever use that approach, or do you usually hone in on a single model?
So, what I do, this is really, like, for example, if you went to Clutch Zone and if you type in decision matrix, there is Moscow, there is this and that. So I spend some time to say what would be the best model for them. I don't ask the users. I just make that call, and based on some of my experience, I know that this is, like, for example, the decision matrix. There's a lot of talk about the McKinsey's 3-horizon model. Some people like them, some people don't like them. But I use the 3-horizon mapping in design thinking, and I have a bunch of ideas, and then I put the horizontal and vertical axis, and then I drop and tell them, where do you think it fits? Then I ask them to discuss, and then somebody says, no, let's move it up. Oh, no, this is not strategic. So it really builds dialogue. So I'll think about who the audience are, and then try to pick that. Like you said, there's so many tools, and then your experience also teaches you, that what you want, which one should you use and when. Like, for example, when like people, there is a conflicting situation. A lot of our customers have problems with us. We didn't support them. And then I use something called sailboat, where, okay, this is where you want to go. What are the drags, and what are the winds that sails, and what are your blockers? And then they get excited about that analogy and say, you know what? These are the draggers, and these are the rocks that are stopping me from moving, and this is my island where I want to go. So some of those gaming things to make people actively participate, I try to pick the ones based on the scenario.
Yeah, that sounds a bit like some systems thinking creeping in there, Raj. That's really good. Yeah. I did have a question about actually I sort of picked up on a comment that you made about the tendency to then sort of make people listen, and thinking, that's probably a good tool for enterprise architects when they go into a room. If they're facilitating this type of session, then there's going to be a lot more talking coming from the attendees than from the architect, which is always a good idea.
Yes. Yeah, and then the anonymity, virtual, and then the sticky note, nobody knows what it is, so I don't have to, and then it's done concurrently. So I'm not looking at my boss and then trying to support that idea. I'm just putting it in, and then people are freely, discussing things. So there is a little bit of a democracy in ideation as well. And
yeah,
then,
which is what you want to encourage.
Yeah. And the voting part of it, right? It's all, I tell them, okay, each of you pick 3 best ideas, and nobody knows who voted for what. And then even if it's not the boss's idea, it still surfaces because everybody thinks it's a good idea. So, I mean, in many ways, it promotes a bit more democratic and consensus. And then one thing I do is I do not stop them from discussing. Let's say just because somebody voted and it upset, hey, if you don't think, let's talk about it. And then the person who says, defends it, people poll, and then they change their mind. That's fine. Yeah.
Yeah, you really want to give them the space to be able to get through that conversation. I think most of the executives that I talk to are incredibly time poor. So when you actually get the ability to facilitate a workshop like this and give them the space to sort that stuff out, it usually ends up better than the start of the day.
Yeah, and this is also another challenge, right? And that's why I like in-person workshops. So I had this about 3 days ago, where I 3-day workshop, phenomenal. But first of all, after COVID, I get to see people and talk to them in person, but then the participation was amazing. Like, some of our bad habits that COVID has taught us to be not present, but look at a video camera and do something else. Think about, you can't do that in person. So and then I still use the computers for the sticky notes, but then we were discussing and there was active participation. Yeah, I mean, in a way it can be done virtually. That's a good thing because of the sticky note, the tool that I use. But I would rather still use the tool, but do it in person to promote interaction and discussion.
Yeah, and just one last quick thing. I'm taking over Bryce's session. Sorry about that, Bryce. I know you want to wrap this one up really soon, but
no, we've got it. Just we're at the 3-minute warning, so there's just enough room for one last question, Daryl.
Well, I'll be quick. I remember you mentioning Miro as a tool for online collaboration for these purposes, and Mural is another one that I've seen used, and I guess I've seen some really, really good effective uses of those tools of late. So I feel like that's a burgeoning skill, I guess, in those that sort of practice HCD and similar skills. And just sort of give a bit of a nod, I suppose, to some of the practitioners I've seen here in Perth that are developing those sorts of skills. What are your thoughts on the effectiveness of the online tools?
Yeah, I mean, they're all very good. And, like I said, I don't try to promote a specific tool. And then it's like, some people like Apple, some people like Windows. You get used to it and you like certain things. I have really learned Klaxoon so much. But on the other day, I was with a customer. They said, Klaxoon is not our approved tool. Miro is. I made the transition just like that because the concept is the same. It's about people expressing idea. Yeah, you're a little bit less comfortable navigating and things, but that's not something difficult to pick up. Yeah, I think the one reason I like Klaxoon is the way I can add metadata. The way I say each sticky note, I can load it with some metadata, like what is the category, what's the dimension, and color coding, and voting and downloading it. I didn't find that kind of things in other tools. That's the reason I use this. But any tool should, Miro is a good tool. All other tools are pretty good doing this. Yeah.